this game is ultimately pretty simple from a matchup standpoint. What's going to win or lose it for Penn State? The question I want to pose is this game, and we touched a little bit on it, but what does this game mean? And especially now with a DC vacancy that's projected to be filled here relatively shortly, an offensive coordinator vacancy that is filled. What does this game mean to Penn State as it pertains to how it projects into this offseason and into next year?
Yeah, great question. I think the answer is, are we for real? Are we legit? Because you see every year, let's just take this past year. We had a lot of hype, a lot of buzz, big names, talent, depth, everything. And, fall a little short. And that's the story in mainstream media. Fluke this, we don't believe in Penn State, this and that. And, it's warranted, for all the reasons that obviously we've talked about. So I think a win over a very good Ole Miss, who a lot of people don't think we should be, or they should be ranked above us. I think a big win here says a lot about what's to come, about this season. We were a good team this year to solidify that, but also to what's to come. And I don't want to fall into what happened last year with Utah, because kind of was the same thing. We put on a show out there in the Rose Bowl, and that had expectations very, very high for the season that just passed. So, but ultimately, I think that's the job. You go out there to win, kick ass. I mean, shoot, we go steam over Ole Miss. You can't help but get hyped for the next year, and I think that's a good thing. But you also have to, put the work behind it. So, I think it would solidify us.
I think what's crazy is I'm already seeing some stuff, people talking about next year's team being the most talented roster Penn State's ever had. And it's very similar messaging, like, already, right? So to me, it's a pretty simple thing. Like, with great power comes great responsibility, right? With like alignment and all these things that Coach Franklin's been asking for and this team's ultimately been asking for, when we start getting it, like, those expectations are going to come whether you want them to or not. And if you go out and you beat an Ole Miss team, like you say, in a pretty convincing fashion, like, those expectations last year aren't going to be shit compared to what they're going to be this year, because people are going to have the scars from this past year. You know what I mean? So to me, like, this game means a lot, especially with these hires. Momentum going into spring ball. You know what I mean? Offensively, good taste in your mouth, fresh face. People are going to be believing in it, drinking the juice internally. I'm not worried about external stuff. I'm just talking internally. And then from a defensive side of the ball, if you can retain a guy like Anthony Poindexter, which we'll dive a little bit more into, but who's going to be calling the game and, may or may not have won it or whatever, the defensive coordinator position as a whole, you can retain a guy like that, like, having confidence in him being on staff still meaning something, right? Like, maybe he's just setting something up for a bigger role that could potentially come down the pipe for him or something like that. But I just feel like this game means a lot. If you win, I think it puts your program and your roster and your locker room into a completely different mindset. If you lose, it's one of those things where, I don't think it's make or break, but it's definitely one of those things where spring ball is going to feel a lot more like get back season, as opposed to, just plugging along and feeling really good about where you're at.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with it means more to us. And maybe that's hard with a biased mind as a Penn Stater, but I think it means more to us from where we've been at in the Big Ten. I know the Big Ten's realigning, but where we've been at and where we've been like kind of scratching at the door at, I think it means more to us. I know Ole Miss probably sees themselves similar, but I'm not sure if they're pushing to be one of the top-notch teams in the SEC. I know they are, but I don't know. I think there's a few teams I put before them, after Alabama, Georgia, I'll say, where the country sees us. We're that next team, after Ohio State, Michigan. But now with the realignment, Oregon, USC, they're going to be competitors as well. But I still think we're right there, still scratching at the door. So the game definitely, I believe, means more to us.